What is up, guys? Alex here from ASRockClass.com, coming to you with a full review of the ASRock Fatal1ty B150 Gaming K4. This is a motherboard for Intel 6th generation Skylake processors, and even though it's using a business class chipset, they've modified it to work and become appreciated by gamers who are looking for a budget build or a more affordable build, particularly because it doesn't have any overclocking features, but it does have gaming features like the I/O shield right there in the back, the red and black motif that everybody likes in this price point, the heat sinks for the MOSFET and chipset. We got 7.1 surround in there, and killer E2400 LAN, and as a bonus we have the Nichicon 12K capacitors for extra longevity. Now this does remind you a lot of the Z170 Gaming K4 we reviewed last month, and that's because they're using pretty much the same layout but with a much more affordable feature set, priced at 5,500 pesos or about $100 elsewhere. So we're gonna review this guy right now. We'll see you guys in just a bit. Alright, so here's what's inside the box of the B150 Gaming K4. As you can see, we have a driver CD right here, a little bit of a pamphlet, a leaflet for other products, the Wi-Fi setup guide, quick installation guide. We have a chrome I/O port covers. The Z170 had a black one with a nice paint on it, 2 SATA cables, and XSplit broadcaster certificate for 3 months, and of course we have the motherboard itself. The box itself is a nice looking box with a praying mantis logo, the Fatal1ty logo with some trademark technologies on the bottom, some of the features. And on the back we have a picture of the motherboard itself, the nice red and black motif advertising the alloy heat sinks, the Nichicon capacitors, and stuff like that, which we'll learn about more in the review. Alright, so let's take a look at the design of the B150 Gaming K4, and yes, it does have that red and black motif, which suits a lot of gaming builds for the price, at least for the value build that you're building. And yes, it looks a lot like the Z170 Gaming K4 we reviewed last month, because pretty much the same layout with some features removed, like the Ultra M.2 slot. It only has one BIOS and stuff like that. Still, it looks a lot similar, and it still looks quite attractive, and at least for this price point you're not gonna get this I/O shielding quite easily, so that's also another nice bonus. If you haven't seen it before, you haven't paid attention to it, we have the ASRock shiny logo on the heatsink over here on the chipset as well, which is a nice touch. On the back here, we can see we have a nice glass fabric black PCB, which is supposedly safer from short circuit protection. And you can see that the heat sinks are screwed on there, which is a nice bonus. Now, as you might have noticed, there is about an inch missing from the right side of the board. That's just how they designed these boards. And as you can see, they've moved the SATA cables to the top and bottom of the chipset here, facing upwards towards us instead of towards the right, which may or may not be your thing. What's probably your thing though are these nice Nichicon 12K capacitors, which last about 20% longer than most leading competitors. Underneath the MOSFET heatsink, you'll see the 10-phase power design for powering your CPU. Over in the back here, we'll see the 7.1 surround sound Purity Sound 3 module, protected by some anti-static or shielding for interference. Alright, so much like the predecessor, or not its predecessor, its bigger brother, the Z170, you'll notice that there are no, built-in LED lights. There's no, on-off switch on the board itself, and other like temperature gauges and stuff like that. This is, like I said, a value board, and you shouldn't expect, more bells and whistles like that, which come in more expensive packages. Checking out the I/O on the back, we have a USB 2.0 here, USB 2.0 PS2 port, DVI, HDMI, 1, 2, 3, 4 USB 3.0, the Ethernet port, a Toslink port, I believe the optical cable port, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3.5mm jacks for your 7.1 audio. Key missing here is the Type-C from the Z170, which is gone in this version. Speaking of things that are missing, you will notice some things that are not present here that was present in the Z170 Gaming K4 review. First of all, there is no SATA Express ports over here. There's only one BIOS. There's no Ultra M.2 slot underneath the second PCIe 16 or the first PCIe 16 slot, and there's no USB Type-C on the back. So, that's the amount of sacrifice that you're going for when you're going for the B150 with the lower price. All right, so what about the experience on building on this motherboard? Well, it's actually quite nice. There's not a lot of surprises here, especially since I built an entire PC on the Z170 before it. As you can see, the CPU power is over there. The motherboard power is over here on the right side. The front panel USB is there, and the SATA is, like I said, facing upwards on top and on the bottom of the chipset. Apart from that, the CPU fan headers are also spread out. So if you have, one of those segregated or multiple fan type units, you can sort of plug them separately. Bottom of the RAM slots right here, and on top is the first two. So like I said before, this does not have any power button or reset button on the motherboard itself. So if you're building on this board, you're going to have to put it into a case first with a power button to make your testing easier. As far as PCIe expansion slots are concerned, we have 5 of them. We have a ×1 right here, a ×16, a gap, a ×1, a ×16, another gap, and another ×1. Keep in mind that the ×1 slots can be occupied by larger cards as long as you don't mind them running at ×1 PCIe. Also, these little slots right here are also gaming armor protected, so they won't, break easily, especially if you have very heavy graphics cards. Speaking of graphics cards, of course, you can use AMD or NVIDIA's graphics cards on here, but unfortunately, there is no SLI support, but you can do AMD Crossfire. So if you're Team Red, you can definitely put in 2 graphics cards on the ×16 slot. Fortunately, no SLI support. All right, so what about the performance of the actual board itself? Well, it actually does perform great. There is no tinkering available. You can't overclock your CPU. And this non-hyper variant, there is a hyper variant of this same board, can overclock the RAM. This doesn't have that RAM overclocking. This tops out at 2133 megahertz, and that's pretty good already. Actually, the benchmarks are pretty much the same. The soundboard performed really, really good. We got some clear bass, some nice 7.1 audio, and we really love this part. The Killer LAN feature is perfect for playing games online and streaming it at the same time. We really had a lot of fun with that. We played, Overwatch at 1080p, shared it online, streamed it online, and it was perfect. As far as the benchmarks are concerned, you'll definitely appreciate it because we had the same amount of scores for both the Z170 Gaming K4 and the B150 Gaming K4, proving that the B150 Gaming K4 can definitely deliver your performance without buying into a more expensive package if you don't want to, especially if you're not into overclocking. And we're using a 6700 non-K Intel i7 and a 760 from Palit. We got the score of the 3D Mark Firestrike at 6,234, pretty similar to the Z170 score. We got 123.54 FPS on Cinebench R15 OpenGL and 811 points on the CPU test. For our sort of a temperature test, we played a lot of Overwatch, probably around 5 or 8 hours total of Overwatch straight, and we never got our temperature for the CPU above 80 degrees. Now 80 degrees may not be too low for a lot of people, but at least for the stock CPU cooler, that's pretty good. All right, guys, so we're coming up to the overall conclusion on the ASRock Fatal1ty B150 Gaming K4 motherboard, and we do like it. It's pretty nice budget board with some nice features included in there. So number 1 pro that we like is the Killer LAN packet prioritization system and the 7.1 surround sound. Those are nice bonuses and don't often come by at this 5,000 something price point. Number 2 pro is that the performance is about as good as the Z170 Gaming K4. Now, we probably would have expected that given that most of the performance is based on your CPU and GPU, but still, the motherboards are also important when it comes to transferring power or giving you temperature readings and stuff like that. So it's still using pretty much the same components as the Z170, and you're getting the same performance as long as you're not looking for, extra future-proof features. Number 3 pro is that same as the Z170 from before, it has some nice high-quality materials like the glass fabric PCB. your aluminum heat sinks, and your Nichicon capacitors. And the last two pros for this motherboard is number one, you can do AMD Crossfire, so you can do multi-GPU setups. And lastly, it is quite affordable at $5,500. Actually, the competition is about $6,000 plus. And this is actually a nice value board for everything that you're getting with the $5,500, or actually elsewhere, it's about $1,100. All right, so let's talk about the cons of the board now. And number one con is that it doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles that more expensive motherboards do, like, LED lighting, switches to turn it on and off, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and even temperature gauges and stuff like that. Admittedly, this is a value board, and value boards do not need those features because most people just want a very good performing board. So the second con is kind of the issue of future-proofing. There is no Ultra M.2, no SATA Express, no USB Type-C. There's not even a second BIOS on this thing, but then again, this is a affordable board, and a lot of people who build affordable systems do not need the future-proofing. But if you are looking into an enthusiast level system, you might want to buy something like the Z170 Gaming K4 with the Ultra M.2, at least to upgrade your hard drives or storage later on. The third con is about the lack of CPU overclocking. Now, I believe not a lot of people will need this, especially if they're building, a value system or a budget system. But for more enthusiast people, they will probably want the overclocking capabilities, and that's a con for this unit itself. And the last con for this motherboard is the lack of SLI support. Like I said before, you can do AMD Crossfire, but if you're Team Green and want to, graphics, two Geforce graphics cards on there, unfortunately, it does not support it. All right, so what is our verdict on the ASRock Fatal1ty B150 Gaming K4? Well, it's pretty good. Like the ASRock Z170 Gaming K4, the B150 looks and performs great and comes with great gaming features. While it does lose out on the Ultra M.2 slot, overclocking, and NVIDIA SLI, most one-and-done builds wouldn't really notice. This might even be preferred choice for net cafes and non-tinkerers of computers, as a system built on it wouldn't need that much maintenance. So if you're looking for a gaming-oriented board but don't want the fuss of going overclockable, the ASRock Fatal1ty B150 Gaming K4 is a great choice, and we give it our good value award. All right, so that's another thumbs up for the ASRock B150 Gaming K4. It's a more affordable board for simpler builds, people who don't need the future-proofing of their system. So that's it from us. Alex from thetechnoclass.com here. That has been the review of the ASRock Fatal1ty B150 Gaming K4. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.